Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of Worldwide Battle Royale. If you didn't see the last episode, we saw the US massively integrating its colonies, as well as a major war between the Pink and Cyan alliances, so if you didn't see that, go watch it. But with that, let's get right into it. So it's no secret at this point that India has been drastically weakened in the course of the last episode, and it's just going to go downhill from here as Russia and China are seeking to make themselves as powerful as the US, which they probably are right now, but they want to exceed the US in power. And so what they do is they begin an invasion of Uzbekistan, not expecting India to do anything about it. And strangely, India actually doesn't do anything about it, but then they start moving troops into Iran because they feel like, why not try it out? And at this point, India's like, it's now or never, and they declare war on China and Russia. As soon as this happens, China starts sending troops from Afghanistan into Pakistan, and they quickly cut off India from Iran. And their strategy is Iran first, India second. They also send Thailand to just quickly cut off Laos and Vietnam so they can't be annoying. As China seizes this island that they used to have and they take it back from Vietnam, as well as start sending troops into Vietnam, but most of their troops are over here, helping out Russia in their invasion of Iran. Georgia also helps with this, as the Caspian is fully seized and Tehran is already gone. The Pink Alliance will quickly join in and start an invasion of Iran, and Russia will pay them to basically just like not do that. And instead give the lands they just took over to Russia, which allows this to happen. These encircled troops decide to surrender. Now Iran is really struggling, but they're still fighting on for some reason. So we'll see how that goes. Over on this front, Laos is not doing well. Turns out that they were just weak all along, and Vietnam has been cut in two. The US finally seizes the opportunity to just take Ecuador, like it's literally just a free country. Meanwhile, Vietnam has fully capitulated at this point, as Iran is still holding out, but at this point they're so much on their last legs that Operation India will commence. And first to be invaded is Myanmar, and then these islands are used as a staging ground to launch an invasion of Sri Lanka, which can then be used as a staging ground to launch invasions of southern India. This way they don't have to go across the Himalayas. They do take this area, though, since they don't have to. They also don't want to go through densely populated Bangladesh. So they start their invasion of the less populated parts of India, and India is still refusing to surrender. Iran has finally been wiped out. Bangladesh will decide that it's better to surrender, and their only condition is that they keep their territory, and their territory is not used in the war. And China is like, fine, we'll take care of them later. They don't tell Bangladesh that, obviously, but that's what they're thinking. So this land is all taken. India's getting really desperate, but they're still fighting on, as Pakistan is fully taken, and it's now India's turn for destruction, but they still keep fighting. And these areas of India are so heavily populated, it would be very difficult to actually invade them. So another landing is made over here, and then another amphibious landing is made over here. And then they decide, screw it, let's invade Bangladesh anyway, which they do, and they're pretty successful. And over maybe a year or two, India slowly gets whittled away until only New Delhi is left standing, which is, I think, around here. I might be a little wrong. That's their capital, and eventually even New Delhi will fall. And that is the end of India and their alliance. So let's see what this looks like when Russia and China divide it up. And these are the borders of Asia after the war. You might notice that India and Iran are actually still standing. By the way, this land is the payment they gave to Turkey to get them to stop invading. India and Iran are still standing. They just had too much territory for it to be all annexed. Bangladesh gets to exist as a puppet state as a thank you for surrendering. And Sri Lanka also gets to exist as a puppet state, even though they didn't surrender, just because it's a nice way to strip some more territory away from India. But India is still standing strong, and seeing how much weaker they've just become, they will decide to join the Pink Alliance. I told you this was going to happen, didn't I? Yeah, Sudan never stood a chance. The only reason they were ever made into a puppet state to begin with is because Nigeria didn't want to do all the work of annexing them right now. Ethiopia and the Pink Alliance in general will join in on this war, and they will start crushing Nigeria, just absolutely demolishing them. Nigeria will keep fighting, but they will get their own territory invaded, and it'll just keep being invaded. And no matter how hard they try, they assume at some point Ethiopia will stop, but they just don't. And now Gabon is even seeing themselves getting invaded, and this is like a really unexpected thing that has happened. And meanwhile, Sudan has been reestablished with their original government that's allied to the Pink Alliance, and Nigeria is begging for them to stop. And at this point, they think they might be able to just take out Nigeria once and for all, so they don't want to. Gabon decides to mediate this, and they eventually do agree to this happening. However, there's no promises made, which means Ethiopia can invade whenever they want. And so to stop that from happening, Nigeria realizes they need to join an alliance. They don't really want to join Russia and China's alliance, because that would make them a puppet to Russia and China. They don't really want to join the US's alliance, because that would make them a puppet to the US. And so they decide to merge their alliance with Spain's alliance. So Spain's alliance is actually getting stronger, surprisingly. Oman will also end up joining it out of fear of the other alliances, as well as Iran. There are now 3 unaligned nations in the world, as well as Antarctica, but we're just going to pretend Antarctica doesn't exist. You can barely even see it on this map. It's much more prevalent because I can actually see the bottom of my map, but it's gone now. It's actually there, it's ugly on the map, so I'm not going to show it. So there's now exactly 3 unaligned nations. And the Philippines are going to learn the hard way that being unaligned is just not something you can do anymore. So they will get invaded from the north, and within a few weeks, they will capitulate. For now, they're just going to be an Indonesian puppet state, but we'll see what happens to them in the future. That leaves Britain and Switzerland looking at themselves, and they're like, no, we can't kid ourselves. We have to join alliances. Also, France, this guy's supposed to be part of that alliance now. I forgot about that. And Switzerland, Britain will be the first to do so. They will join the Spanish alliance, and Switzerland will also join the Spanish alliance because they wanted to join one of the 2 alliances that borders them, and Italy hates them. They wouldn't let them join the Russian alliance. So now every country in the world is fully aligned. You're either part of the Yellow Alliance, the Green Alliance, the Pink Alliance, or the Red Alliance. For now, though, things will be uneasy but peaceful. And a few smaller things are going to happen. Some housekeeping, if you will. So first of all, this Sri Lankan puppet state, unlike the Bangladeshi one, is not intended to be permanent and eventually will be consolidated as part of Thailand. This Saudi puppet state will make a deal to get full independence but be part of the Pink Alliance. Spain will decide to fully integrate their Moroccan puppet state out of certain fears. And this puppet state is like kind of a shared puppet state between these 3 countries. So they will instead just be given full independence to prevent them. The last puppet state in the world is Estonia, which Finland decides to give independence to, provided they stay in the Russian alliance, because that strategy of managing puppet states actually seems to be working. And when I said it was the last puppet state, I was wrong, because there's also 2 more over here that I forgot about. If you'll remember, the Philippines were always supposed to be annexed into Indonesia eventually. The Philippines were always supposed to be annexed into Indonesia eventually, so now they are. And Australia will actually fight a war for independence that they'll actually do miraculously well in, as Russia is just tired of war and planning for a bigger war. And so they do try to invade into Australia, but Australia will manage to kick New Zealand out of their mainland, not out of Tasmania, as well as repel any invasions, and eventually Russia will just be forced to let them go. And Bangladesh is supposed to be a permanent puppet state, so for now they'll just stay that way. Australia is looking for which alliance to join. Obviously they don't want to join Russia's. And after some campaigning, they decide to join the Pink Alliance. They see that it's protected India from getting invaded again, and so they figure it'll probably protect them as well. And now there's 4 alliances that overall have, on average, neutral relations with each other. So they're all basically playing a huge game of diplomacy with each other, trying to figure out how they're going to get it so that they're on the winning side of an inevitable war that'll probably place 2 alliances against the other 2, but it might be 3-on-1. While this is happening, Bangladesh starts to get invaded, and India starts invading into Bangladesh. And Russia doesn't do anything about this. And for now, there's like a stalemate line, but Russia is still pushing into Bangladesh. And so they're kind of like as a quasi-war here that Russia seems to be winning. It's China. It's China. It's not Russia. Sorry. China, in this case, seems to be winning. And India just kind of lets it get to their border and lets China fully annex Bangladesh. But back to the diplomacy I was talking about. That's probably going to be the rest of the video. So if you just want to skip to see what happens in episode 9 and if episode 9 has already been uploaded, go do that. But for now, I'm going to discuss. So the two alliances here that hate each other the most are Spain's alliance and the US's alliance. For obvious reasons, right? Like Spain used to be... I mean, the US's alliance actually only has 2 countries in it, now that I think of it. Right, it only has the US and Argentina. But Spain's alliance basically formed as a way of getting independence from the US, and the US has been salty about it ever since. They're also harboring Venezuela and Canada, which the US considers rightful American territory, as well as Greenland, potentially. So these guys really do not like each other. So chances are they're going to be on opposite sides, which means that it's up to the red and pink alliances to decide which side of a war between these two they want to be on. The red and pink alliances are going to think about this differently. The red alliance is thinking, we're probably going to win. Whichever side we join is going to tip the sides of the war. It doesn't really matter what the pink alliance says. We're probably going to win. So what do we want it to look like after we win? And they realize that if it's just them and the yellow alliance, or them, the yellow alliance, and the pink, they're going to be like hegemonic in power. Whereas if it's them and America, America still has a chance to rival these guys. So they decide they're going to actually start getting closer with the yellow alliance. The pink alliance is thinking the opposite way, right? For the pink alliance, they're like, what is going to make us most likely to win the war? And the American alliance looks far stronger, at least for now. And so they're like, maybe we should just side with the U.S. And so they start getting friendlier with the U.S. They also don't really want to be on the same side as these guys. These guys are willing to be on the same side. So then these guys get to talking, and Russia's like, hey, what if we all decide to team on the U.S.? So these guys are all talking. The Yellow Alliance is like, sure, but we want to get a decent amount of, like, we want to be able to liberate a bunch of countries here. That's what we've been planning to do for a while. And Russia's like, well, no, we wanted to carve out spheres of influence for ourselves. And so now Russia and China are kind of getting alienated, whereas the pink countries are like, fine, we weren't going to get anything from the U.S. anyway. It might be a better idea to team up with you guys, but now that Russia's on it, we're actually going to team up with the U.S. And so now the Yellow Alliance is feeling isolated. So the Yellow Alliance is forced to go back to Russia and say, no, actually, you guys can carve out spheres of influence. We won't. Sorry, I have no idea what just happened, but I think I was talking about the diplomacy between these guys. And it's going to go around a lot. So the U.S. is finally going to get involved in the diplomacy. They want Russia to be on their side. Surprisingly, maybe. They want to clean up these two smaller alliances. They think they'll be in a better position, and they think they can wedge Russia and China apart so that they'll be in the most powerful position. Argentina doesn't want this to happen because Argentina knows that they're just going to, like, they're already a junior partner to the U.S. They and the U.S. have different priorities. Argentina wants the world to be relatively equal after this world war happens, whereas the U.S. wants them to be, like, wants the U.S. to be hegemonic. And so Argentina will, like, separately consult these guys and be like, the U.S. is planning to work with you so that they can split you guys up. And so these guys will not fall for the U.S.'s plan. And so overall, despite all of the diplomacy that just took place, pretty much the teams are the same as they were originally going to be. And whenever this war does end up breaking out, and it'll break out at the start of the next episode, spoiler alert, it will probably end up being red and yellow versus pink and green. So wait, so why is pink with the American alliance? Well, basically the American alliance, after they fail miserably with the Russian alliance, and they have no idea that Argentina, they still think Argentina is fully on their side, they decide to go to the pink alliance. And the pink alliance is like, you know what? If we side with the Russian alliance and the Yellow alliance, we have literally nothing to gain from that besides Madagascar, and they're going to carve up the Americas, and we're just going to be cooked. So we might as well take a big gamble and go with you guys, because at least we're going to actually get something if we win the war versus being cooked either way. So, yeah, that's what ends up happening. So with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.